Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Wu. We also have Julie Edwards on, Rob Wu from Coswalks. So many of you may know me. We're super excited to share with you our topic today in this webinar. We will be getting started just probably in the next few minutes. A few housekeeping items to start. You should be able to hear me speak. Audio should be pretty clear, hopefully. And then my webcam is on and Julie's is on. Julie, you want to say hi real fast?
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, great sound check. So we're super excited to have you. As we're getting started and waiting for some folks to come in, feel free to use a few different functions during a webinar. There's a chat function on the Zoom. Feel free to click on that. You can chat us in anytime. I will be monitoring this on Julie's behalf. So feel free to chat us in. Any questions along the way, we will get those answered. There's also a Q&A function too. So as you're having you're getting some amazing insights from Julie. Feel free to click on that too if you have any specific questions, and we'll go through them as well. In like a few minutes, we'll be getting started shortly. So feel free to use the chat function. Just one question here. What is... I don't know if I should ask like a funny question or like just a straight up like regular question. Let's just start with a straight up regular one. If you're gonna just type us in who you are, where you're dialing in from, feel free to chat us in right now just so we can get a better sense of who's on our webinar today. In the meantime, I'm gonna pull up my slides.
No answer for me. I'm outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in Gainesville, Georgia, about 40 miles northeast of downtown Atlanta. Where are you, Rob?
I'm based in Austin, Texas, where it's 100+ degrees every single day or every single day of the year too. So when I stand outside, I feel like my skin is melting. So that's just how it is right now. It looks like we're getting some Q&As in here saying the chat is disabled. I will enable that after our webinar begins. So apologies for that setup. I don't think there's a way for me to do it right now. But in the meantime, feel free to just using Q&A if you do have any questions, and I'll work on some of the settings as Julie begins her conversation. All right. Okay, so let's begin. We're at the top of the hour. So my name is Rob Wu, CEO and founder of Coswalks. We also have Julie Edwards, our amazing guest speaker today. And the topic that is super relevant to us today is how to run $1 million or less capital campaign. I'm excited about this topic because one of the fastest growing use cases and one of the reasons why people use Coswalks a lot in the past 12 months is actually running capital campaigns. And so really excited to bring Julie in because not only do we have a ton of customers that are looking, ton of customers and users and nonprofits that are looking to raise funds through capital campaigns, but it's actually a very timely topic. And when I talked to Julie a few weeks ago, she has some amazing insights in terms of how you run a capital campaign. So that's why I brought her in today, just to speak to our audience. You have Julie Edwards. She's a nonprofit strategist, and she's really focused on all breadth of different things. Her specialties are copywriting, which is super important when it comes to fundraising, because having a strong story yields more fundraising results, as well as she does a ton of fundraising strategy. And part of that are capital campaigns. You also have me too. I won't be on here for too long since you're here for Julie. I will be chiming in here and there, as well as helping facilitate some of the Q&A. So as many of you might know, you're here with Coswalks. So we are a digital fundraising platform for nonprofits. We offer best-in-class fundraising tools such as donation forms, crowdfunding pages, peer-to-peer fundraising, event ticketing. We all do offer this and pair this with hands-on support. So as the founder of Coswalks, 13+ years, I've been doing this. I've been helping thousands, tens of thousands of nonprofits accelerate and grow the digital fundraising. And we still take a very Main Street approach to how we handle customer service. So if you need somebody, call me, or you can call one of my team members and they'll be happy to help guide you through any questions that you have. All right. And then we also have just top rated fundraising education, such as some of the stuff we're doing today. The whole shtick about Cosmos is that we help you raise more funds within less time through a couple of different use cases. And one of the ones I want to highlight is just donation forms. So during a capital campaign, having a donation form is really important. So you can actually take digital donations. So whether you're doing one-time payments or recurring payments, or whether you want to take donations through automated pledge forms, you can use Cosmos for that. And then very lastly, you can also use Cosmos for capital campaigns by plugging in us through the public phase of when you do your peer-to-peer fundraising or when you do your crowdfunding pages. So you have automation tied into your campaign site that you don't need to hire an IT person for, that has a real-time progress bar as well as peer-to-peer fundraising, so you can grow your digital gifts. If you're looking for more info about Cosmos, if you're tired of hearing me talk about our platform and just want to do it later, feel free to check us out over here, cosmos.com/schedule-a-demo, and I'll put this in the chat if after I get that working. You can take a look and take a tour of our platform and see how it works and how it can help your online giving as well as capital campaigns for this year. All right, so I want to hand it over to you, Julie, because our audience actually is here for you and not for me. So I want to hand it over to you. So let me unshare my screen.
You have to unshare, and then I need to share. And then just a quick note for everyone, I am going to turn off my video so we can be fully focused on the slides. Make sure I'm sharing correctly. Am I sharing correctly, Rob?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Good. Great, I'm going to turn on my video now. So thank you all for being here today. And thank you to Cosmos and Rob for inviting me to do this. We got a lot of information to cover. I will tell you up front that I tend to talk sort of fast, so I'm going to try to slow myself down, and I have some people checking me just in case I start talking too fast. But if I do, please, send a note through chat once Rob gets it going here, and I will try to slow down. But there's just a lot of information to cover. Make sure I get you all the information that you need. In general, just want to say really quickly, capital campaigns, we've all heard about capital campaigns, that they are, a lot of people have them in universities, hospitals, and they're 30, 40, $50 million campaigns. And this is, for $1 million or less. And this is typically, in general, these types of strategies are for organizations that say are between 500,000-ish to $3 million in revenue, right? So somewhere in that realm. If you're outside that a little bit, it's okay. I'm just trying to give you a perspective of, it is for smaller to mid-sized nonprofits. Is what this webinar is, targeted to. Of course, if you're bigger or smaller than that, that's fine. Really big, this probably isn't your webinar, but we're going to get started. Let's see here. Click on the right screen. There we go. So a capital campaign at the most basic level is, a targeted fundraising effort that takes place over a specific period of time. And it's always to purchase some type of thing, a very specific project, like construction on a building, remodeling, land, or equipment. And usually it's for a substantial amount of money. Now, a substantial amount of money can mean different things to different people, because substantial amount of money for some people could be $30,000. For others, it could be 30 million. But this is for people where 30,000 is more of a substantial amount of money. In this webinar, we're going to be talking about developing your strategy and your case for support, how to find donors and make the ask, incorporating your individual donors when you get to that phase of your campaign, and then how you communicate and thank your donors, communicate with and thank your donors. A little bit about me really quickly, for those of you who don't know me. I have worked in the marketing communications field for about 25 plus years, in the nonprofit world for 11-ish years. I went out on my own in late 2020. In the past 2 years, I've worked with clients to raise over $5 million. That adorable little pup in my lap there is Millie, who is my vice president of positive client relations, as I say. And she's actually here in the room with me listening in. So maybe you'll get to meet her later. But there's all my contact information over there on the right as well. You can see me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out. And why should you listen to me? I will tell you. So I have done, in my years as an executive director, because I was a director of development and an executive director, there were 5 years I ran 5 capital campaigns. I know, I laugh about it now. I don't know why I'm not half dead, but we had a laundry room. I worked for Humane Society. We had a laundry room remodel. We had built out a healthy pet clinic. We remodeled our surgery suite. We put a new roof on our building, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it was a 20,000 square foot building, and shingles cost a lot of money. And we also built a huge outside, we call it the Bark Park, but an outside dog play area for our rescues. Those are all the campaigns I ran. So you hear all about them. Since I became a consultant, I also have worked with a humane society to help them purchase a transport van. And I'm right now working with an organization in Canada on a $1 million campaign to purchase land. So I have quite a bit of experience in doing these. So if you've heard about capital campaigns before, you know that before you start one, they will tell you that you should do what's called a feasibility study. And basically a feasibility study is you're trying to assess if you have the means within your community and within your organization to have a capital campaign. People may disagree with me on this. I don't know for a smaller campaign that you need a true feasibility study, but I will say you need these things. You need the support of your board and your team. You know, your board needs to understand why they are involved, what their role is. They need to have, you know, friends with money they can bring to the table. You need to have enough team members to support the effort, from communications to thanking donors to entering donor records. You need to have a fairly solid mailing list and donor database, and we'll go over that a little bit more later. A fairly solid Facebook following, and I use Facebook specifically because Facebook is still where the majority of people, I think, on social media of the age group you want to target are. You need to have a good reputation in your community. And again, we'll talk a little bit about that more later, but you know, basically, if you're known in your community, or if you're not known in your community, if you're in a smaller community, if you get media coverage, what the feeling is about your organization. But most importantly, I think more than anything, is you have to be confident that you're going to be successful in this, and passion, because confidence and passion will take you a long way. So starting out, you know, the first thing you want to do is a budget and set goal. Like any project you do, preparation is key. Just like painting your house, you know, you prime your walls, you want to set a good prime here. You want to set the base to be strong. And you want to make sure that your budget is very thorough, that it covers everything that it needs to cover. So if you're doing construction, you know, painting, millwork, everything, you know, demolition, usually if you're working with a company, they will give you a bid. So a lot of that stuff will be covered. But you also want to make sure that you add, you know, your communications cost, you know, any cost that you may have in donor relations, if you buy thank you cards. I mean, every little thing you need to make sure you cover, because you want to make sure you set your goal to cover all of your costs, not just the cost of the project alone. There may be cost outside the project alone. And, you know, from that, you will set your goal, your overall goal for the campaign. I will give you a really quick case in point of why you need to do this, to be careful. When we were building out our healthy pet clinic, we got a quote from the builder. When they were there surveying the space where we were going to do the build out, I told the gentleman, I said, these are reinforced concrete walls. They may require a different kind of demolition. I said this multiple times. I was not heard. So when they got there to start doing the demolition, they found out the walls are reinforced concrete, which I told them, but they did not hear and they did not quote on. They had to stop the entire project. They had to bring in people with wet saws, which is how you have to cut down reinforced concrete walls. Took them 2 weeks to do this, and it cost us an additional $30,000. So that's why I'm saying, you know, make sure that you are as thorough as you can be, that people hear you, that you follow up in writing, you know, if you have any unique things. And there's always going to be things that happen that you're not prepared for. So that's why you make sure you add some contingency money in there. So if something does happen, you know, you run upon some mold or a pipe, you know, a water line that needs to be relocated, or something like a reinforced concrete wall, that you'll have that money covered. Timeline and launch. So I would say in general, and again, a lot of these are generalities, that, you know, for this size of campaign, $1 million or less, it shouldn't run more than a year. A year would be toward the $1 million end of it as well. Ones that are, you know, less in money would also be less in time. Of course, you want to include, you know, the budgeting and price quote phase, and when you're getting quote, if it's a building or whatever it is, if it takes more time, sometimes it takes more time to get quotes. You know, but you get the quotes, your budgeting, building out your timeline, the planning, and then of course your public phase and your silent phase. And in general, I'll also say this, your public phase should probably not be longer than 3 months tops. And we can talk a bit more about that later as well. But you don't want your public phase to go on forever and ever because people will get tired. There needs to be a sense of urgency and deadlines to meet. Case for support. So this by far is the most critical thing that you will do as part of your capital campaign. This is where you're going to develop the message and narrating around your campaign of why is this important? Why does it need to be done now? What problem will this campaign solve? If this campaign doesn't happen, what's going to happen? And I literally, when I do this, will sit down and type out a story and a narrative of the campaign. And then from that story, I can pull out a lot of talking points, both when I go to meet with donors, when I start building, the social media posts and all those types of things, my emails. So it is really incredibly important that you nail your case for support and that you really understand and are passionate about the reason for whatever it is that you're trying to do. In your case for support, when you actually do the physical document outside of the why, which is the big part, you'll give a brief history of your organization, talk about your mission and services, again, go over your why, and sometimes you'll include different graphics and an explanation of the proposed project. Now I'm going to go through a series of slides of cases of support. The reason I want y'all to see these more than anything is I did a lot of these myself in Canva, and you don't have to have something fancy, super fancy. You can do something as long as it's clean and basic and you get the information across, that's great. Don't feel pressured like you have to go out and have something professionally graphically done, done by a graphic designer for it to be, to be perfect. So this is one that I was talking about earlier. I did transport van campaign for an animal shelter that is in a county adjacent to where I live. And again, you can see there, these all the ones I did look the same, y'all, I'll tell you, but it talks about the need, it talks about the goal. Their goal was to purchase this forward van so they could transport animals to other states because unfortunately in the South, we have a huge animal overpopulation problem. This shelter has to euthanize sometimes. By transporting animals out of state, they save more lives. By having their own van, you'll see there in the brown box at the top, they would increase their life-saving potential by 100%. They would go from being able to transport 500 animals a year out of state to save lives to over 1,000. That's a huge why, right? The goal for this campaign was $66,000. That was the van, retrofitting the van, the gas and driver fees. For this campaign, we actually wound up raising $89,000. So it was incredibly successful. They're going to put the extra monies into a fund so they continue to purchase gas and things they need for transport. So it really worked out well for them. We did an incredible job on this campaign. And on the back there, you can see the back cover was talking about their particular shelter and their mission as the shelter. This was for the surgery suite remodel that we did at the Humane Society I worked with. Again, you'll see there on the right, we talk about the history, the problem, and how you can help. Now, this one's a little different. I listed out specifically all the different fees that were given to me by the construction company, and then also the fees for the equipment that we needed to place in the surgery suite. And part of the reason I did that is sometimes people don't understand how expensive things are. And so you want to say, yes, because it is a surgery suite, we have to have a specific kind of table and specific kind of lights. And those lights are $5,000 a piece. And those tables are $7,000 a piece or whatever that is, because people they don't work in your field. They may not understand that. So putting that in writing so they can see it, impresses that upon them that this is not an inexpensive venture. On the inside, I actually put photos of some of the equipment so you can see what we were talking about. And you also see there the schematic of how the suite was going to be, the blueprint of how it's going to look after the construction and the different areas that it was going to house. And then there again, on the back cover, we talked about our organization and our mission and what we did as an organization. This is the organization I'm actually working with in Canada. And they are purchasing land in Canada, and it's $1 million basically campaign because it is just land and they don't have anything else that they are trying to raise money for. The case for support was fairly straightforward. Now, this was developed by a marketing company because there's a marketing company that provides work for them pro bono for free. So they did this, and it is much prettier than what I did in some ways, but not necessary. You can still get the point across in something that's very clear and concise. And I think one of the most important things about a lot of the cases for support are photos of what you're doing, visually supporting that. This is our laundry room remodel. Same thing as our surgery suite remodel. We showed a blueprint of the floor. We gave a listing of equipment, cost and the what it was going to cost to do the construction. In this case, I was very specific about the washer and dryer, because when you buy a washer and dryer for your home, it's what, $500, $600. I don't know what a washer and dryer is anymore, maybe a lot more than that. A commercial washer is, as you can see there, this was 4 or 5 years ago, is $9,000. And so again, in a commercial dryer is around $4,000. The point there being, I wanted to impress upon people, this is not, a GE washer that you put in your home. This is a very different commercial washer that is very expensive. So they wouldn't question that cost and understand that there was a difference between those and what you have in your home. So starting your campaign. So the first part of your campaign is going to be what they call the silent phase. This is where you're going to be raising your major gifts. Hopefully you have a board that or some of your board members are wealthy and have wealthy friends or connections with wealthy people that can give these lead gifts. You may also, if your organization is old enough or known enough, have people that have given you major gifts in the past that you can go back to that didn't necessarily come through a board member, but through another avenue. But the main point is, as we all know, is people give at the major donor level, people give to people they know. Those are very personal asks. Those are face-to-face meetings. So there needs to be some type of connection to your organization with a person there that has been, nurtured, or that is stronger than, the person on the street you're going to be getting money from. So typically the goal to raise minimally during your silent phase is 50% of your campaign. So if your campaign is $100,000, you want to raise $50,000 from major donors. If it's $1 million, you want to raise $500,000. You can do more than that. If you do 70%, great. That means less you have to raise in your public phase. I'll also say that this is the part of your campaign where you can think about matches. Match gifts are usually found on this level. I have a lot more to say about match gifts later. I'm a huge proponent of match gifts, but it's really would be great. It's always very great, very successful if you can launch your campaign with a match right out the gate. I've never seen a match fail. So it's really important at this phase, to identify, someone who maybe can give match gifts or a couple of match gifts, because you can always combine gifts to make a match gift. You're also going to be doing your prospecting. So prospecting is basically just identifying the people amongst your major donors or the people that your board members know that may be able to give a major gift. And again, a major gift depends on the size of your campaign. A major gift for one campaign could be $25,000. For another campaign, again, it could be $100,000. It depends on the size of your campaign as to what the major gift's going to be. But after you literally sit down and make a list of, okay, this board member knows Joe Smith. Joe Smith, my board member thinks, has the capacity to give a $50,000 gift. This board member knows Mary Jones. We think Mary Jones has the capacity to make a $25,000 gift. So you literally want to make a list of all the prospects, the potential donors, what their potential capacity is to give, the potential gift size they could give, and then who they have that contact with, because those people are going to be the ones setting up the meeting or getting you in front, your development director, your executive director, in front of those people. So here's a sample giving tier, and I sort of hit the middle of the road here, but let's say you have a $350,000 campaign goal. You don't have to have these 5 tiers. This is just the way I set this up. This is not necessarily the same for everyone, but your lead and major gifts that are going to be in your what you call your silent phase. So when you're trying to get those major gifts, and your mid-major and other gifts, which is everyone else, is going to be part of your public phase. So this is sort of what a giving tier looks like. You can sit down and say, okay, we need at least one $100,000 gift. We need, 2 $25,000. You can see the rest of it there. And then when you get to your public phase, $70,000. I would say in general, and again, this depends on the size of your campaign and what kind of campaigns you've run successfully in the past. But for most organizations, probably $80,000 to $100,000 is a very is a high end of what you want to want to shoot for in your public campaign, unless you live in a really large city. Again, this is all very flexible and fluid. You may not get $100,000 gift, but you may can get 250s. So as long as, this is just trying to give you an idea of what do we have to shoot for? What kind of gifts are we going to be looking for, asking for in order to meet our goal? Because you're going to have, of course, those high-end gifts, and then your major, your campaign part that's public for everyone else to participate. Rob, are you on mute? I got a little feedback there. I'm not sure. Maybe hopefully it's not me. And so making the ask. So this is for your lead major donors. That should always be a face-to-face meeting. You should take your case for support with you, your printed document, and optimally have a pledge form or options in your head to go over with them or leave with them when you're at the meeting. This is the part where you need to truly show your passion. You're selling. You are selling this project to these folks. You're a salesperson. I hate to say that, but it's true. And these people are going to know they're there to be asked for money. So, if your board member is sitting at this meeting with Mary Jones or John Smith, they know they're coming to this meeting to be pitched for an opportunity to give money, right? So they know that they're coming into this. They're not surprised that you're asking them for money. But there's lots of strategies around asking. Some people say ask for more, than you actually want, because they may come down. There's different types of questions and ways you can ask. I'm not going to go into that level of detail. You can certainly, look at, there's lots of great people that talk about that. But you do, a great question I always found to ask was, what do you feel comfortable giving? That sort of leaves it open-ended for them to say, I'm comfortable giving this. And you can always go up or down from there and say, well, I feel comfortable giving $10,000 today. Well, let's say you're really looking for 15 from them. You could say, well, could you do 15? Would that be possible? So there is, some negotiation options there if they are pitched, come in lower than what you think, or they may say, what are you thinking? And then, I do think it's probably wise for the most part to ask a little higher, knowing that it may come down. Don't undersell yourself though, because again, people can always come down, but once you say, I need $10,000 when you actually need 20, they're not going to probably offer you more. So, go in with what you really need. I will give the example, the biggest gift I ever asked for and received was a $100,000 lead gift. It was a couple that one of my board members knew that was very philanthropic in our community. It was for our Healthy Pet Clinic again. They were the lead donors. The clinic was named after them, their families. We went to a nice lunch at a nice restaurant in my town. We had lunch, and then they knew the pitch was coming. They're like, what are we here to talk about? So I pitched my story. I told them how about senior citizens and how about people could not afford vet care, that it was a luxury for people, that I hate to see people have to give up their pets and their pets suffer because they couldn't afford vet care, that there was a need in our community for this. And then I talked specifically about my 80-year-old parents who had 2 dogs that were the light of their lives, but that they ran upon, major vet bills that it could severely impact my parents. And I wouldn't want them to give those dogs, because those dogs were like the reason they lived, right? They were the reason they got out of bed every morning. And I almost cried when I was telling the story, because I thought about it and how my parents, and I got a little teary-eyed. And so, we left the meeting, and the next day the wife called me and she said, we're going to give you the whole $100,000, Julie. And she said, I will tell you though, that when we came into that meeting, that we were only going to give you $50,000. But after you spoke to us, and after you told us the need, and after we saw your passion and heard your stories, she said, we feel compelled to give you the full amount. This is why passion, y'all, is so important. And the why, that you have to really embrace your why and be willing to be vulnerable and be open and go there and share those stories, because your donors will feel that, especially these major donors, and they will respect you for it, and they will give you more for it in a lot of cases, as in this case, this example. This is just a sample pledge form. I won't stop on this very long, but to say, this is not a great pledge form either, I will tell you. It was the first one I had ever done, but I Googled pledge forms and I pulled bits and pieces out of different pledge forms and made, this Frankenstein pledge form, I'll call it. But you do need to have some type of pledge form, especially for major and, and lead donors, that explains, how they're going to give, the timeline they're going to give. Sometimes for really large gifts, you may want to give them 2-3 years, maybe up to 5 years, depending on the size of the gift, to pay out the gift. That again is dependent on your campaign and the size of it, and you need to make those determinations with your board and what you can financially afford. But you do need to have some type of pledge form for those major gifts so that it's in writing, that you and the donor both sign it, that you're aware of that's going to be paid and how it's going to be paid and the timeline it's going to be paid in, so that you can ask for those amounts when they're due, and that, you know, it's very clear and upfront with everyone. Public phase. So the public phase is when you start talking about, of course, with your mid-major and all other donors. Mid-major, again, depends on your organization. A mid-major donor for our organization was somebody that gave cumulatively $250 to $1,000 a year. That differs again for all organizations. But this is when you talk about, you know, to the public about the campaign, and this is when crowdfunding comes in. I will say a appeal about crowdfunding, and not that Rob paid me to do this at all, but a crowdfunding platform can be incredibly helpful at this part of the campaign. There are a lot of, you know, like Causebox, as he was saying earlier, a lot of the things that you do can be automated. The sending of emails to donors, the sending of emails out to your people that you're trying to target. You have a really pretty, beautiful landing page for people to go to that has a thermometer about the goal and shows a ticker of how the campaign's going, which can be very encouraging to folks. You can allow peer-to-peer fundraising if you want to do that as part of your campaign. That may fit in, it may not, but usually not in this case. But there's just a lot of great things that you can automate and do through crowdfunding that will make it so much easier on you and your team to run your campaign. So we'll give a pitch here for crowdfunding platforms that they can be great things to use for capital campaigns, and have a lot of functionality that will help you a lot. Also wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of matches again. So that campaign I told you about that I ran for Habersham Animal Control. There was a major donor in that campaign that we approached about giving a match. And they were the lead donor at the time. So we approached them, they gave us a $10,000 gift. So from that we launched a campaign with the $10,000 match. So we're running this campaign, we have a $10,000 match, give us money, right? From that $10,000 match, we received 2 $5,000 gifts and another $10,000 gift. The 2 $5,000 gifts came from an individual who used to live in that community that now lives in Atlanta and gets the newspaper, the local newspaper, saw the need and sent a $5,000 check. The other $5,000 check was from a local company. They saw it in the newspaper as well. So both of those, so they met the $10,000 match. Then another lady came forward and wanted to meet the $10,000 match at the same time. We asked her if she'd be willing to be a second $10,000 match because we had already met the $10,000 with the 2 $5,000 matches. And she said yes. So we met the first 10, and then we were able to say, we've met the first 10, and now we have another $10,000 match. And then we had a lady come forward and want to give $20,000 to match that plus. So matches beget matches in a lot of cases. You know, other donors that can have the capacity to give at that level will see a match and they will want to help, and they will give bigger gifts in turn, and then you can leverage those gifts as additional matches if you wish to do so. That is the importance of matches. Doesn't always happen that way, but I've seen it happen a lot of times where a major match can encourage other people to give major donations that you were not prepared for. So your public campaign phase. So we didn't always do this, but where we could, we tried to make it very relative to the folks. So when we put the roof on our building, which we called Raise the Woof, it was sort of cutesy. Yes, it was an animal control, but we sold, and I got to say this really slowly, sheets of shingles. So that's how we pitched it to the public. So $30 bought a sheet of shingles, 62, blah, 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 thereof. That was very palatable for folks, oh, I can buy a sheet of shingles. And that was true. I mean, it's not, we did the math. It was pretty true. And we started out with a matching gift challenge. You can see there's just an example of how we pitched that. We had different matches throughout that campaign from $5,000 to $10,000. I think we had a couple of matches. When we did the dog park, we sold feet of fence. So same thing, we did the math, and I think a foot of fence was square foot of fence was like $35 or something. So we did very much the same thing where we sold a tangible unit. You don't have to do this, of course. We couldn't do that for the Healthy Pet Clinic or the surgery suite, but it made it sort of fun in these situations where we could tie it to something like that. I felt like it sort of made it fun and people could really see, oh, for this much money, I can get, help with this thing. So marketing communications, obviously this is the part where you're launching all of that. Things you want to do. So I will say one note really quickly about Facebook. If you do not regularly post on Facebook, and by regularly I mean once a day minimally, and you start a campaign and all of a sudden you start hitting out there 3 or 4 times a day on Facebook, from what I understand, Facebook does not like that, and Facebook will shut it down and not show your stuff to people. So if you know that you're going to be having a capital campaign, I would highly recommend in the months leading up to that you start increasing the frequency of your Facebook posts, so that when you get to the campaign phase and you're communicating with folks via social media, that Facebook won't shut you down. That may or may not be true, but I just want to throw that out there that have heard that. Obviously during this time, this is when you're going to be regularly updating donors. You're going to be posting on social media as much as possible. You're going to be sending emails to them with updates on the campaign and also asking them for money at the same time in a lot of cases. If you live in a smaller town and your local newspaper or radio station is well read and a lot of people listen to it, I would definitely send a media release. Media releases still work. We have a great newspaper in our town that covered everything we did. And so we would always send them updates to the kickoff of the campaign. We're halfway through. When we ended the campaign, they would come out and do stories on the demolition, at the end when we were done, on the opening. So, keep in touch with your local media, make your contacts there. If you have a local media that is responsive and works with you, definitely keep them in the loop. You want to think about milestones for matches. Sometimes you can't always predict those, but you want to announce it when matches are met. You want to, when a match is coming due, but maybe you aren't complete, like urgent, we need to meet this $5,000 by the end of the day tomorrow in order to completely meet the match, because you need to put some kind of urgency and a deadline on things for people to hopefully give and feel compelled to give. Of course, update all your social headers, update your website, or if you have a crowdfunding platform, a donation platform, make sure that's updated with your branded campaign materials. That there's, a logo on the, not necessarily a logo, but like the raise the whoop. You don't have to be that fancy, but you need to have something about the campaign, a name for the campaign, that you're branding that you're putting that out there. Again, many donation platforms like CauseVox will send updates and emails for you. So anything you can do with that's helpful to get that word out, great. Again, leveraging multiple matches, talked a little about this earlier. Don't, if you get in a big gift, you may want to sort of early on, you may want to sort of set it to the side in case you have a match and you meet that first match, that you can leverage it as a second match. That there's nothing wrong with that. It's not being cheaty. I would, of course, talk to the donor and say, hey, we know we're already $8,000 to meeting this $10,000 match, and we know we're going to meet it. And rather than use your $10,000 match now, we would rather put that over here and wait until we meet this first match and then have a second match, because that'll encourage more people to give. I've never had a donor decline me on that. Savvy donors love the fact that their money can be doubled, and donors who are given $25 love the fact their money can be doubled. So it's a win-win situation. I wanted to mention briefly about starting your project before the campaign ends. I would try not to do this. In other words, you don't want to start construction until you actually have the money in hand, for a variety of reasons. But one of the reasons is if you start the construction, people will think, oh, they're starting the construction, they already have enough money, and they may stop giving. Sometimes there may be a situation where you have to start construction before you totally end the campaign. Again, I would try not to do this, but you could say, we need to start this if there's a truly compelling reason, but I wouldn't make it much before you end your campaign. I've seen some people do this, that's why I'm bringing it up. I also would try not to move the end date of your campaign. We did move the end date for the transport ban because we had a second match come up, as I said. So we moved the end date for that match because we were not completely to goal yet. I wouldn't probably do that more than once, because it's sort of like the boy that cried wolf. You keep moving your dates, people are going to say, oh, what are they doing? They are not serious about this. They don't know what they're doing. If you have a very compelling reason to move your end date, like, oh, now we've got a second match and we need more money, so we're going to move the match, that's fine. But just be really careful about starting your project too early or moving your end dates. I'll just say those words of caution. So stewardship. So obviously donor relations is a hill I will die on. I saw it totally impact our organization and raise our donations by 400%. So I preach donor relations all the time. It's one of the things I truly preach. You should plan your donor relations while you're planning your entire campaign. You want to say, okay, what donors are we going to approach? How are we going to thank them? That communication should be going on throughout the campaign in various ways, addressed in all phases, and you should absolutely make sure you're recording all those donor touches in your CRM or your donor database, so that at the end you can go back and send thank you notes even at the end. A lot of things, again, you get to help with this. You should know automating emails. Writing campaign specific letters is incredibly important, again, branded to your campaign that talk specifically about your campaign. You can include special touches like photos and videos. I'll show you some examples in a minute. You can even get, campaign specific thank you cards if you want to. But this is really important, y'all. I cannot enough stress the importance of keeping your donors, reporting back, telling them what's going on, keep them updated on the campaign in a consistent, authentic way, that they know what's going on and how you're using their money. And some people will come back and give you second gifts, third gifts sometimes. So it also behooves you to keep in contact with folks and let them know where the campaign is, because they may give you another gift. So make sure that you stay on top of that. This is just a sample again of campaign specific thank yous we sent. You see there on the left, the one for the Bark Park. We put our little Bark Park emblem up there. Again, I did that in Canva. That wasn't done by a graphic designer. The one on the right was for the Healthy Pet Clinic, but they're very specific to that campaign, thanking them for meeting that specific need. So do make sure you send out very specific thank yous addressing the campaign, not just thank you for your donation, but thank you for your donation to this clinic, which, by the way, is going to help animals in our community stay healthier and stay with their families. Sorry, I was taking a sip of water, y'all. Major donors. Also, make sure to ask your major donors about recognition when you're talking to them, when they commit to a gift. Not all major donors want to be thanked. A lot of them don't. In that case, you can just say a generous donor. You can also ask your board, if it's a friend of theirs, how does John Smith like to be recognized? What would be meaningful to him? But in general, those type of things are going to be more high touch in public. I also just want to say a really quick note about naming opportunities. Don't give away the farm, folks. So, if you have 100,000, if you have a $10,000 project and somebody gives you a $10,000 gift, you don't need to name the whole building after them. Make sure that, the gift is appropriate to the naming opportunity if you allow or include naming opportunities as part of your campaign. Don't, sell out your whole building or a whole surgery suite or whatever for $1,000, because you may not have that donor at that time, but later on you may have a donor that'd be willing to come along and pay for that. That may sound greedy in a way, but I think people feel compelled sometimes to do that for donors. But again, just make sure that the gift is appropriate to the opportunity to name whatever it is they might be naming. Again, individual donors, you're going to be wanting to follow up with them via email, via social media. And also be sure that you're acknowledging your first-time donor. If you have a first-time donor that gives to your capital campaign, if it's their first gift ever for your organization, you need to make sure that you're thanking them in a very specific way for first-time donors. You probably have all heard these stats, but the likelihood of a first-time donor giving you a second gift is 20%. If you can get them to give you a second gift, the likelihood of them giving you a third gift goes up to 60% and increases 3 times. So, be sure to have someone that's looking at that and seeing that there's a first-time donor, that when you send them, a very specific thank you letter or email that says, thank you for giving your first gift to us during this campaign. Because that they would be compelled to do that during that campaign, you need to acknowledge that. I know we're getting into time, so I'm going to try to go through these last few slides really quickly. This was the Bark Park that we did. We would post photos all the time on social media. You can see there at the top left was like the before, when they did demolition in the middle, getting toward the end on the right there. So, photos, videos, social lives. I would get outside. I got outside when they were doing the demo and did a social live on Facebook. Look, they're doing the demolition. We're about to tear down, take the first dig of dirt. And people love that stuff. I really want to show you this video, but I'm going to show it. I really want to show it, so I'm going to show it really quick. Hopefully, it's just a minute video, but I'll set this up that this is a volunteer of ours. We shot this on an iPhone and did it in a video editing app on our phone, so it was not anything done professionally. And I will not skip. I'll skip through the end part.
We need new runs very badly because, as you see, when it rains, it turns into a dirt mud pile, and it's not only dangerous for the animals when they run, it could be for the volunteers as they come out here. You never know if they'll fall and slip. Another bad thing about the runs, besides that they're falling apart, which they are, is the erosion. At one time, they tried to build something to keep it from coming down, but it didn't work. So everything's eroding. And that's why we can't keep the mulch or anything in it, because once it rains, it washes everything out. You just have to look around and you can see the potential problems that could occur. We want to make this area be pretty much a utopia for the dogs, and at the same time, safe for the volunteers. A nice place for the animals to go to get away from all the noise and craziness from inside. The condition of the runs pretty much speak for themselves. They're pretty much on their last legs. That's all we could say.
So again, I just wanted to show that video. That still gives me chills when I see that video. But that video, again, y'all, was just done on an iPhone. It was done, very simply. Got one of our major dog walker donors to talk about, why there was a need. When you see that, you completely understand why there was a need. Another part of our pitch was, of course, that the dogs, lived in a kennel for 23 hours a day and may get outside for an hour a day. And when they get outside, they really need to get outside in a nice area, not a mud pit. After the campaign. So we're getting near the end. We just have this is the last slide. Again, make sure you keep giving ongoing donor updates and updates in the media, as you're going through the construction process, when it's done, if you have an open house, if you have a grand opening, anniversary. So like, oh, it's the year of our, dog park being open. Oh, we've had 500 dogs that have enjoyed playtime in the dog park. Make sure you keep hitting those anniversaries and milestones for at least, say, a year after. Because people, they love that. They love for you to keep keeping in contact with them seeing their gift being used, them seeing how their donation is impacting folks, impacting your clients, impacting the animals you serve, whoever it is you serve. So keep, communicating with them. Don't just stop when the campaign's done. Because when you do the next campaign, it'll be important that you've done this. So now we're done. So really quickly, I can develop this whole step-by-step planning guide. That's a freebie for y'all. We'll send the link out to y'all. I believe Rob told me I should have the list of everyone that attended by tomorrow or Monday at the latest. I did put a little QR code there if you want to nab it real quick, but you'll get that list. You can go download it. That's free. It's full of assessments and checklists, a lot of things I talked about in this presentation that'll hopefully be helpful to you. I also just wanted to mention that I'm going to be hosting a year-end course that'll be starting August 25th. Again, it will be a very step-by-step to success for your year-end campaign. It'll be over 6 weeks. Again, there's a QR code there. And for anyone that's attending this webinar, and only folks attending this webinar, I am pricing the course at $7.99, but you will get a $100 discount. It'll be $6.99 for you if, when you check out, you use the promo code CAUSEVOX. We'll be covering developing your year-end plan, getting ready for year-end, your communications, donor stewardship, and how you continue to communicate with your year-end donors into the new year. Hit that really quickly. Now I know I'm almost on time. I'm only 3 minutes over. Again, there's a little QR code there if you want to go ahead and get that on your radar, but do consider that. A few things, nice things people have said about me. You can read that later, all 5-star. And also there you can see my email address. So if anyone has any questions that we don't answer here or questions later, please feel free to reach out to me. I really don't mind if you reach out to me. Okay, Rob, to you. Questions?
So I think that was an amazing presentation because the whole walkthrough on how to actually execute on a capital campaign is really important. I really love how you did just touch on the strategy of it and storytelling and a copywriting piece, but really focus on the process, which for a lot of folks running a capital campaign for the first time, it's really hard to understand what the specific process is and actually seeing the templates and examples of how to do it, the case for support. I think that I found that part super valuable. So we're going to open up for the next 5-10 minutes or so, some time for questions. We do have a few questions already. If folks on our webinar today do have questions, feel free to use the Q&A function. I apologize, the chat function is not working. So let's get started. We do have a question from Kristen. Kristen's asking, when should you do a capital campaign versus some other type of fundraising? And if you're looking to purchase a building, but you don't know what that building will be yet, do you fundraise before you have the specifics, or do you do it after? Like, when do you figure out when to actually launch the campaign, how to structure it, how to start fundraising?
Yeah, that can be difficult. The organization I'm working with in Canada that's trying to buy the land, of course, they cannot afford to buy the land until they have the money. But at the same time, they before the campaign started, they went out and priced land in their area. So they knew they wanted like 8 to 10 acres. So they looked at multiple pieces of land in the geographic radius of where they wanted, their future home to be, and saw that their parcel of land of the size they wanted and the place they wanted was going to be around $1 million. Some might be, 900,000, some might be 1.1, but the average was $1 million. So that's how they set their goal. I would say you're probably going to need to do the same thing, where you're going to need to look in your community at the geographic area you want to be in and what is available there for land, and then the cost to build if that's what you're going to do, or to rent or purchase a free building that's already exists, and take some kind of an average goal and try to hit that as your goal. But capital campaigns are for very specific projects with a very specific end, and usually it is building or renovation, land, or equipment of some type, like a van or a washer and dryer for your laundry room.
Yeah.
Hope that answers your question.
David Brown is asking if you have any additional pointers on crafting your message or your case for support or your appeal to different audiences. For example, some audiences don't really resonate with a specific cause, like for homeless veterans. How do you make sure you craft a story and message that really resonates with specific audiences, or should you target specific folks? Any tips on kind of the marketing, copywriting, storytelling aspect?
So if you've already been raising money, I would say you're the place where you need to start is with your current donors. I would even consider sending a survey out to them, or if you know people who have been donors of yours for a long period of time, and maybe they haven't given a lot of money, but they've given very, over a long period of time regularly. They may give you $100, 5 times a year. Go to them and say, why do you give to us? It could be on the phone, it could be via survey. Hey, Bob, we're going to start this capital campaign. Why do you give to us? What makes our mission so important to you and touch you in such a way? A lot of times you get great information, great talking points from your donors. Obviously, they're giving to you for a reason. Find out what their reason is. And even major donors. Now, major donors sometimes may just give because, oh, my friend Joe asked me. But a lot, definitely those mid-major donors, ask them, go to them as a resource. I wouldn't say, when you get you certainly should be targeting people that you think will have a propensity to give to your mission in the major phase. Those should be people that are going to give to you because they support your mission. Sometimes they may give because their friend asked them. But in the public phase, open up to everyone. You never know what's going to hit someone, but you probably should have a couple of reasons that people should give. Like, let's go back to the dog park again. So the dog park, we had 2 things going on there. We had the fact that it was very unsafe and not good. We actually had a volunteer slide down the hill out there and get a compound fracture on her leg. We told that story. It's very dramatic, right? It's very unsafe. It's not a safe space for the dogs, for the volunteers. But then in addition to that, the other part of the story was, these dogs live in their kennels 23 hours a day or more. They get out maybe for an hour a day. they need a great place to run and play that's awesome, that they can really get exercise. They deserve that. They deserve that, right? So we had two different messages there. If you have two different messages, hopefully one of them is going to resonate with majority of your donors.
Yeah. I think the survey part, I think, is really important. That'll give you some insights into why people resonate or where they even heard about you. And then you can get some ideas in terms of, okay, great, we have a segment of donors that heard about us from this source or this method or this channel, and that will allow you to invest more into those channels or sources so that you can acquire more of those type of donors.
And
I think
again, that doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to go get SurveyMonkey or some paid platform. You can do that through Google Forms, that's free. But yes, absolutely 100%, Rob. And that's a great point about how they heard about you. That needs to be a question you ask. And the other question you can ask when you do the survey is, what social media do you, are you on? Find out, are they on Facebook? And that gives you an idea about where to put your posts and how frequently, but ask those kind of questions as well, like to get that insider information.
Yeah, I think even if there's an opportunity to build this into the feasibility study, it could be interesting.
Yep.
Since during a feasibility study of capital campaign, you're already reaching out and talking to donors. So this could be an additional activity or additional data point that you collect as part of that study too.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. Or your I call it assessment for lower level campaigns.
Yeah. David is also asking if you can go back to the checklist slide so folks can grab the QR code and the link for your template.
Sure will. Oop, there you go.
All right. Peter's asking, in their situation, they're going to likely continue raising funds for a large campaign into the construction of a soccer field. What kind of language can they use to explain why they need additional donations? So I guess in this case, if you need to extend a capital campaign, or if you need to increase the goal, like what's the best way to message and approach how you communicate that?
To a certain degree, that's going to depend on the situation. For example, during COVID, supplies have been very limited. Supply chain's been shut down. We all know that something's increased in cost. So let's say you were planning, to a build project, and all of a sudden lumber went boop through the roof during COVID. I know somebody that's doing a nonprofit's doing a building right now, and they're having to ration out concrete in their area because there's so many building projects, and so that's delaying things. So I think it really depends on what is happening and the why of that. But again, if there's a genuine why, like we planned, $1 million for this or $500,000 for this campaign, but now lumber's went up 50% and we need to raise more money. But if it's a legitimate why that you can tell people, but I think it does need to have some legitimacy to it. You just can't go say, oh, we need more money. You need to explain to people why you need more money and why it's important that you raise that extra money. I hope that answered your question. It's hard to answer that question without knowing the full information. If you want to email me, David, you can.
David, definitely email. Sure, can give you a ton of insights. Let me see. We also have some other questions too. Melissa was asking that they're in a low social economic area, and an economy in their specific geography is challenging. This is more of a kind of a prospecting question, like how do you reach major donors? Like what is the method that you do to either build your prospect list or get referrals to major donors? How do people start?
Well, and this goes back to the assessment. Like I said, I don't call it a feasibility study for this size campaigns, I call it assessment. But your organization needs to have had major donors in the past that you can go back to, and or you need to have board members that can give a major gift, and or have connections to other wealthy people in your community or surrounding communities that can give a major gift. You're not going to cold ask a major donor and get a gift 9.9 times out of 10. That's unfortunate, but true. So your organization is going to need to be evolved enough, and or you're going to need board members that have those contacts and or the capacity themselves to give those gifts in order for your campaign to be successful. Sometimes you may have team members that know that, like the gift that came from Habersham actually came through me because I knew a donor that from my past life that had a propensity for animal welfare. And so I called her and asked her if she wanted to give that transport van campaign. But once you sort of get that, that first gift again, a lot of times you can leverage that as a match. Other gifts will come forward, not always, but it does happen a lot of times.
Mhm. So it sounds like the best approach, or one of the approaches for prospecting, or building a list is first like forming your campaign committee for your capital campaign, just getting folks just write down names of people that may be good targets,
Mhm.
and using that to build a list,
Correct.
as well as looking at your own existing donors to probably see how much they've given in the past, their lifetime value, and then creating a segment of those folks who have a lot of potential to become a major donor for a capital campaign. Kind of combining those two lists of people, and that's one place that you can start with.
And you made a couple of good points there, Rob. One being, don't look at your donors. Like, you may have a mid-major that has the capacity to give a major gift. They may have given you your $2,000 a year over the past 5 years. They may have more capacity, so don't rule them out for giving another gift, a bigger gift. And then you mentioned committees, which I forgot to mention. But if you don't have a board that is wealthy or has wealthy contacts, you can set up a campaign committee. Those can be more work than they're worth sometimes, but you can get people in the community who have those contacts and who are passionate about your mission and can sort of act as an adjunct board in a way for this particular campaign.
Yeah, that's great. It looks like that's basically all the time we have for questions, as well as that was the last question that came in. Now, Julie, I know you have kind of your freebie over here of templates. Where can folks find out a little bit more information about you? Could you go back to the slide with your contact info?
Sorry, I know I'm gonna scroll up, and I'm not doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on the Nonprofit Maven is my handle, I guess. So you can find me on Instagram at the Nonprofit Maven, on Facebook at the Nonprofit Maven. My LinkedIn, though, is just Julie Edwards. Then my website's there at the bottom. It's the nonprofitmaven.co, that is co.com. And then my email is the same, Julie at the nonprofitmaven.co. And again, feel free to email me. I should get back with you within a day, and connect with me on any of those channels. DM me if you need to, but I'm always glad to answer questions within the knowledge that I have.
Thank you, Julie, for the time today. For our attendees, you will get a link to the recording of this webinar, as well as a link to the slides, and also some of the resources that Julie posted, including the free templates and worksheets, as well as discount to the course. That all will be included and will be emailed out to you. So thanks so much for the time. And Julie, thanks again.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob, for attending.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.